Well, greetings, friends, and welcome to the Gospel Underground Podcast. This is episode 67 on reading habits. We are broadcasting live for us from the Power of Change Worldwide headquarters here in Blacksburg, Virginia. I'm here. We're back. Two in the shed. Jesse Fury, my main man. No clothing remarks from me today for you, but you look fine as usual.
It's good to be back. Good to be back.
New boots?
Yeah, you know what? You said you weren't going to mention anything. That's right. I got some new boots.
At Christmas, this is our first time together after Christmas.
That's right.
Kayla and I, thank you for your questions that you sent in for Kayla to take up. She did.
Man.
I mean, that made the podcast. I know you couldn't be with us, but your questions, it just kind of made it happen. And
yeah, I was sad to miss in every sense of the way, having sick kids, but then also missing out. But man, she crushed it.
Oh man,
Kayla needs her own podcast.
Well, I was telling her that when she's in college, there are probably some special appearances that we can do together with her, just as she goes through a university, because she'll be at a secular liberal arts college. People from all over the world. Kind of, I know she's at least a kid from Rwanda she's connected with already, and Australia, which is on fire. Pray for Australia.
Yeah.
So I thought it might be fun to have her on periodically. What she's studying, the university experience. It is a school that's dedicated to free speech and inquiry still, unlike others that are can't say anything anywhere. But so yeah, she was fun, and Casey listened to it yesterday, and we were both. We're just proud of her, man, and I think she's a pretty great kid. And
you should be proud of her.
Pretty focused, but still a kid. Yesterday, we were debating on whether or not when she goes to college, does she come off of the screen time control of her phone?
And what's the answer?
Well, I had to repent after this whole exchange because I wasn't kind. I said, "Yeah, we're keeping it on lockdown," because And she was like, "Well, I should be able to make my own." And my wife interjected and took her side pretty strongly. Then I felt shut down. So I just took all controls off her phone. I was like, "Okay, you're on your own." And she's like, "That's not what I was asking for." And I did that rashly.
Yeah.
So later on, I apologized.
You're fine.
Yeah, you're fine. You're free. And you can watch anything and everything and do anything on your phone now. And that was a poor parenting move. And so last night I apologized to her for that, and we rebuilt a new kind of setup for her on her phone, which has still some controls, but yet more leeway, and her kind of made all the decisions on the settings. So that was kind of a good in the end, but I was kind of a jerk in the middle.
Well, that's the way it works. That's the way it works. So we haven't caught up yet much since Christmas. I got some questions for you today, Reed.
Oh, okay. Is this one of these in or out questions, or just questions?
Sure, in or out. Let's do it. In or out. What was your best experience around Christmas?
This is going to seem shallow, perhaps, but I received a wonderful gift when I got married of in-laws, and so we were at their place at the cabin. It's just kind of on a river in North Carolina. They were retired there. And literally, my mother-in-law said, "Hey, we want Reed to smoke meat for us," because we know he's been doing that. And so,
they must follow you on Instagram.
Yeah. So quite literally, this probably was the best gift I got too. But I smoked meat after Christmas, because we had a traditional Christmas with some turkey and things, dinner, and then ham. But the next day, she said, "Whatever you want, anything." So I was like, "Well, hey, get me a rib roast." And so she said, "How many people? How big do you need to be?" I was like, "Well, 5 bones. Can we do 5 bones?" Well, she bought a 7-bone. She bought the whole cow, had a butcher do it. She cut the bones off it and stacked it and tied it to the bones so I could smoke it that way. It wouldn't fit in the red box, so I had to trim some ribeye steaks off of it to get it to fit.
Oh, wow.
It was so huge.
That's why you started thinking about getting a bigger smoker.
It is, and I didn't pay for it. So thankfully, that was a wonderful time just sharing that. It turned out really great, although my mother-in-law does not like red meat at all. She likes well done.
And she still liked it?
Well, she had to they cooked it in the pan a little bit longer for her, because you don't cook a rib roast. You cook prime rib, medium rare at the most. So that was my favorite.
Hey, I smoked meat on Christmas Day.
I saw pictures.
That's right, yeah. So how about this? I got one for you. Best Christmas gift.
Right there. I have a new little tiny electro cooler thing to hold drinks in my office.
Look at that.
I used to have one in here and it broke pretty quickly. I think the technology breaks easily. But yeah, my wife got me that. My daughter drew the Power Change logo on the front, and I can like put my little unhealthy Monster Peach tea.
Monster Peach teas.
10-calorie, chemical sweetened, whatever, B vitamins and caffeine drinks in there. So that's my favorite little gift.
Nice. How about this?
How about you? Boots?
Oh,
Your boots?
Man, this was the Christmas of shoes. I got these boots, which I love.
Billy White shoes, Johnson shoes.
I got some black on black Chuck Taylors.
Wow.
And then here's probably my favorite one, and it's because I've wanted these shoes for at least 25 years.
Wow.
I got some white on white Air Force Ones.
Well, I saw them, and I was like, man, you're going to get a toothbrush to keep these clean.
I have already been cleaning them.
They look great.
Thank you. I'm trying to make it the Preachers and Sneakers.
Did you feel... I'm staying out on that. Can you run faster in those? You look like
I could jump higher.
They look like those kind of shoes.
I can run faster. All right, I got one for you. Worst Christmas gift?
I want to stay out on that because if I say that, then somebody gave it to
your
me.
Your people listen,
and your
family listens,
so they might hear that. So I'll just say that I didn't keep it. I took it back, got a refund, and I didn't get anything else. So,
oh wow, no, I don't want anything.
Yeah, no, don't give me anything. I did get a down payment this year for some dumbbells that you want to buy for weightlifting.
Yeah,
I got 2 like from the thrift store kind of dumbbells that you wouldn't use, but they were like, "Hey, go get what you need and go get what you want." So I probably will do that for me and my son, so we can like get huge this summer.
Okay,
in the garage,
get swole in the garage.
Swole, yeah.
Garage
my son's 13, so he's at the age where it's time for him to start.
Yeah, he's got to get swole.
Muscling up. You know what I'm saying? Well, hey Jesse, we know that you did a wonderful. Gave us a wonderful gift here on the podcast by going social media less, more or less, for a month so we could test out some digital minimalism. But what our listeners don't realize that you've had another kind of thing going, a little challenge for yourself, and that's kind of going to be our main topic today on reading habits. So you put in the notes here, reflections on reading 50. And friends, that's 50. 50 books, man, 50 books in 2019. One, did you reach your goal? And 2, tell me about this.
Yeah, man. So I decided pretty much every year I will in December start to think through what kind of challenge do I want to take on next year. And
not a resolution, but a challenge.
Well, sure. I think of them as practices.
So, liturgies.
No, maybe no practices. So I decided I wanted to read 50 books in 2019, and I started real strong, and so I kind of ebbed and flowed throughout the year. So I started
roughly a book a week, friends.
Roughly a book a week. That's right. And so I set out to read a lot. Really, so some of this was because I had been thinking about pursuing doctoral work in the future, and I wanted to figure out can I develop the kind of habits or practices where I can read a lot, and so I found that the answer is yes. I can read a lot. So I wanted to kind of walk through some of my experience this year, and what it was like for me to read well, or maybe not well, but read broadly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, before I get into this too much. You probably have read. I mean, you're Mr. Underground, so you're not going to tell us how many books you read. But I saw the blog post you're working on with all your book reviews from books you read this year. So I think you're right there with me, Reed.
Well, I like reading.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate for it. Like Brian Regan, the comedian. Maybe we can put this in your show notes. Has this comedy bit about like the guy who's doing the debate, who's debating against reading. Like I don't even think you should read good. Who makes that? Nobody says that. Well, maybe our president
maybe
does.
Though, yeah.
But yeah, no. Most people think reading is a positive activity for your life.
Right.
You start learning that as a little kid, But I like books. I like audiobooks a lot. And I enjoy just the opening of the world through the imagination and the intellect through books.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason that I started this challenge or this practice in 2019 was a few things. One is I am convinced that reading more makes you more happy.
Yeah.
In general.
And somebody told you readers are leaders and leaders are readers, right?
Someone has told me that. But that maybe that did go into it, but I don't think so. So we'll put some of these in the show notes, but I was doing some research into what are the reading habits of people now.
Yeah.
And one thing that I found really interesting is millennials read more than previous generations. At least more than other generations do right now
at their age.
So millennials, they also go to libraries more and bookstores more. So there's a bit of a resurgence in local bookstores. So everybody forecast they were all going to close with the Kindle and iPads and so on.
Right,
but they didn't. Right, some of them did. The big box ones, some of them shut down.
Books A Million or something.
Right, bam.
Borders
bam.
Books, yeah,
gone.
Right. Barnes and Noble's hanging on a few places.
Yeah, but local bookstores have, by and large, while they've lost some business, many of them have stayed afloat. In part because there's a kind of a resurgence in millennials and younger generation who want to hold real books,
book culture,
and so that's really interesting. I found that interesting. That's still somewhere in the ballpark of 5 books a year on average. So anyway, that is something I thought interesting. Millennials read more than other generations do right now, at least according to surveys and research. Donald Trump, however, reads nothing. Did you know that? I mean, maybe you could tell. But
he likes McDonald's and doesn't read. So,
this isn't even political. It just is what it is. A book was written about him, Fire and Fury, and about his. Maybe you can't trust everything in there. Maybe you can. But one thing that hasn't really been debated is he just doesn't like to read.
Right.
So he doesn't want long reports. He
likes information.
He likes the information to come orally. So he wants you to give him a debrief. He doesn't want to read it.
Focuses on current events, news. Kind of, he watches stuff on TV a lot.
And so that's right. Yeah. And so I thought I want to read. I don't want to. Whatever maybe you can tell that he doesn't read. That's all I'm saying about that. So for me though, I wanted to read because I wanted to be happy. I've got an article linked here from Fast Company on your reading habits can transform your health. And in it says reading for pleasure in general can also prevent conditions such as stress, depression, and dementia. Says Wilkinson. This is a researcher. Research has shown that people who read for pleasure regularly report fewer feelings of stress and depression than non-readers. Basically, there's a lower subsequent risk of incidence of dementia. Now, that's really interesting. I went back and read the report, and you have to do a high volume of reading in order for that to work out.
Right.
But
to have a very engaged kind of intellectual mental life.
Yeah, and an enjoyable reading. So this isn't like you're reading because you have to. You're reading because you want to.
Right.
But I found that really interesting that dementia, depression, stress tend to be lower the more that you read. People who read books regularly are, this is another quote from that article, on average more satisfied with life, happier, more likely to feel that the things they do in life are worthwhile. A recent survey of 1,500 adult readers found that 76% of them said that reading improves their life and helps to make them feel good. I want to feel good. So that was part of the reason that I wanted to read is I knew, and like you read, I like to read. So that there are some baseline things that I already had going for me.
Right.
I already read a fair amount. My job in particular lends itself to some reading. So
study, teaching.
Yeah.
Right,
so I'm requiring anywhere from 10 to 20 books a year for people that are taking classes that I lead either through the Bonhoeffer House or through our local church. And so I'm reading along with them.
Right.
So man, there it is. There's 15 or 20 that I already was going to read anyway.
It's fascinating. As a kid growing up, I was a math science guy. I was a math science guy in my undergraduate studies as well. I hated reading books. I mean, I hated it. Like, it's like, dog, make me read a book. I remember English classes in middle school just bring me down. Like, I got to read the Oxbow incident. What is that? I didn't want to read it all. But when I became a follower of Christ, and I don't know if this is simply because obviously the Bible matters, so you're obviously going to start reading the Bible when you become a Christian. But I was a college student, but I also became interested in ideas. And I took great joy and pleasure in learning about different ideas. And this came late in my college career. And I had the same effect, Jesse. It did change my disposition. Now, sometimes you're reading stuff that makes you mad and frustrated.
Yeah.
But usually when you're picking a book you choose to read, it's because you have a love or an interest in things, and that can tend to make you into a different person. And I think Christianity may be related to because people, the book, the scriptures, the writings, that we have been illiterate people and brought literature and literacy everywhere Christianity has gone. But it's very much connected, not simply with your job as a minister, but your culture, right, is around books.
That's right, yeah. And I was convinced by a friend of mine, an author, Karen Swallow Pryor. Shout out if you're listening, Karen. But she wrote an excellent book on reading well, and she gave. I brought a group of Bonhoeffer House guys to go and just spend some time with her last year, and I guess this was 2018, and she gave us essentially her introduction to the book live and in person, and man, it was so convincing. Essentially, the argument, which I already believed, but it was helpful to hear it, that reading well makes us more virtuous, in part because we're growing and challenging ourselves through the reading, but in part because you like you said, you're engaging with ideas. Even in fiction, you're engaging with, would I have done that? Why did this person do? I want to be like this, or I don't want to. This is what I don't want to be like. And so, it's almost a way in which, by engaging the book, we're being changed. As a matter of fact, let me quote from her. This is in her book on reading well. She says, "Just as water over a long period of time reshapes the land through which it runs, so too are we formed by the habit of reading good books well." So, I was convinced that was true. So it wasn't just that I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be more virtuous. I wanted to be formed well. So I undertook this project, read 50 books, got through it all. Now, full disclosure, I was still tying up 2 of those books in the first week of January. So technically it was 49 and a half or so, or 48 and a half. So I finished up my last 2 books.
My view, if you were in it, you win it.
Yeah. So it was a lot of reading though. Okay. So a few things, I thought I'd talk through a few of my habits and then obstacles. And then, a few things that I set out to do on the front end was I wanted to not listen to too many of them. So for me, listening to an audiobook can be really engaging and helpful, but also I tend to get in the bad habit of spacing out or multitasking. And I didn't want to multitask my reading.
Quick question.
Yeah.
There are opinions out there on this. Do you consider, if you listen to an entire audiobook, do you count that as having read it?
I do, and I only did that with a couple of these books.
Okay.
One of them I did it on purpose. So one of them, and I'll get to that, I didn't have it in there, so I'll mention it now. One of them that I did that on purpose was Beowulf by Seamus Heaney. I think it's meant to be listened to.
Oral, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the great, Middle English translated poem, Beowulf and Grendel and Grendel's mom. And anyway.
Your mom.
Yeah.
Grendel, your mom.
Okay. So I do think it counts, but I do think you engage with it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to limit that. I also wanted to make sure there were a fair amount of these books were for pleasure and a fair amount of them were fiction. So I believe that reading good fiction is not just a throwaway or isn't just entertainment. I think it actually still forms us and shapes us. So, So really, I did almost all of one of the other thing I wanted to do is make sure that this I wasn't just using my work time. Right. So I do have the luxury of being able to do some of my study during the day, but I wanted to do most of the reading, and I would say I probably did about 90%, probably 45 or so of the books was not between the hours of 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, which meant that my regular habits were early morning reading, and then reading in bed. So what really helped for me, I was really stalling, and about 3/4 of the way through the year, Jenny and I decided that we were going to disconnect technology from our bedroom. And so this was about the time I was reading books like Deep Work and Digital Minimalism, and as we've talked about on the podcast before. And so, man, it's amazing how quick you can make progress when you spend 20 minutes reading before you fall asleep.
You fall asleep better
instead of spending an hour, binge watching a show or something. You fall asleep quicker. So early morning, I was getting up between 5:30, probably around 5:30 to 6 on average, and just getting some reading before my kids get up. So my kids would be up around 6:30 or 7, and there's enough time between 5:30 and 6:30 to pray, make coffee, read my Bible, and read and get 20 pages in a book. So that was another one of my habits. And do you do this, Reed? I had almost always 3 or 4 books going at the same time.
Yeah. Usually I do that. Yeah, all the time. I'm looking at my stacks.
Reed's got this great. The shed quarters is great. We're surrounded by books, but he's got his stacks of like current reading books.
They're usually on some subject I'm trying to do a deep dive on, and that I'm not doing well enough on. But yeah, like my science stack, my artificial intelligence stack, and then evangelism stack over there. Yeah, I like to read. I tend to look at some books as tools, and some books as friends, some books as just kind of mind enjoyment. So, I have to confess, I don't read any fiction. This is probably not surprising to some people who know me, but I love what's called creative nonfiction,
right?
Like histories and
David McCullough.
That kind of stuff.
Okay.
I love that stuff. I chew that up like crazy. But I don't read any fiction, and I do audiobooks mainly for pleasure, and I read a lot of those. I read nonfiction books around ideas quite a bit in order to engage them. For some reason, if I'm wanting to learn something or really engage something, I have to look at it and I have to scribble on the book, and things like that. Pure pleasure, I don't feel like I better remember what happened in the Whiskey Rebellion in 17 whatever. I'll just listen to those books,
right.
And so. But yeah, I typically can have many. Specifically, like last summer, I was updating a parenting and technology seminar, so I had like 4 or 5 books I was reading in parallel. Jumping around in things.
Good. So that was another thing for me that's just the way that my brain works. I'd have books in certain locations. Right. This is when I'm in the morning, I'm going here. That book's already set out at night. To greet me in the morning.
Yeah, there you go.
A good friend does. By the way, I love how you mentioned some books are for using or tools. Some are friends. I think that is one of my reflections. Is it's really helpful to know in advance. So I think sometimes of reading in the way that St. Augustine and On Christian Doctrine talks about the way that there's some things are meant for us to use, some things are meant for us to enjoy, and the best things are meant for both, right?
Yeah.
And so in reading, that was one way. Some of the books were like I read a Joe Nesbo book, which is like kind of a detective pulp kind of book, and that's just an enjoy book. It
like
was
Father Brown mysteries.
Yeah, I did read a Chesterton mystery too. So anyway, and one more habit that I have is like you, I like to mark my books up. So
you do it a little neater though.
Yeah.
Jesse uses a straight edge ruler and makes like perfect lines like a computer did it in his books, but it's his pen.
I want it to look nice. I write things in there too. I'll make notes in the margins.
Do you flag pages like that, or do you use little sticky flags?
I don't. I'm open to it.
Yeah, I abuse books like that. There's some if I'm reading for research. Where's this book, The Case Against Reality?
Get it.
Start doing these little flag
things on
the side there, So.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So those were some of my reading habits, and what I thought I'd walk through a few of my best books of the year.
All right, should we give you a good drum roll? Or before we get to that, Jesse, the fact that you read 50 books, I just want to give you a gold star for your achievement. You can put it on your lapel and take that home with you.
You know what? I want an actual gold star. Okay, where are they? I need the gold star stickers. I counted the pages today. I realized as I was doing it, I was
showing
nobody
off?
cares. Yeah, this is showing off. So I'm not. Well, now I got to say it. It was over 10,000 pages.
It was 11,386 pages read by Jesse Fury.
Thank you. That's what I want my gold star for. So, best books. So I've broken it down into a couple categories. Nonfiction. I'm gonna run through them on reading well. So that was Karen Swallow Pryor. I just think it was really excellent. Gives a good. What she does in it is does an introduction where it's just more about like here's why reading well matters, and how reading well changes us and cultivates virtue in us, and then she goes through the theological virtues and the Aristotelian virtues, and each one focusing on a different work of literature. Another book is Disruptive Witness by Alan Noble, which is kind of like if you
I bought that book.
Okay,
yeah.
So if you are interested in reading Charles Taylor on philosophy, but you're like, whoa, that's really big. This is a great primer on really how we can be witnesses to the gospel and to God in the world that we're in our secular age. Deep work, we've already done something on that. All That's Good, which is on discernment by Hannah Anderson. Found that to be really helpful, especially thinking through cultivating the art of recognizing the good, true, and beautiful in life, and not just looking at discernment as what's bad, stay away from that.
Is this next book a Timothy Ferris book?
It is. Tools of Titans. That was my beach read. I took that to the beach, and it was really interesting. So Tools of Titans is kind of like his interviews and
successful people and their habits of life.
That's right. Some of them were like really interesting. Some of them I just was like, oh my gosh, you're crazy.
I get up at 4 a.m. and take a cold shower. Yeah. And then I jump into a swimming pool
the crazy part was the psychedelic mushrooms this stuff where I was like, well, I'm probably just not going to do that. No, definitely not going to do that. One was Edwards the Mentor, written by Reese Bazant, who we've had here on the podcast before, which was it was a really good book on how Jonathan Edwards his pedagogy of mentoring, how he mentored guys, and it's really going to affect the way that we do things with the Bonhoeffer House. So I'm excited about putting that in practice. Atomic Habits by, help me out here. I mentioned this, James.
Yeah, you mentioned Clear. That last time. Yeah.
Super, super helpful book thinking about just the way that little habits compounding over time make a big, big difference. And then finally, one of the best ones, nonfiction that I don't know that anybody's read, is Given by Tina Bosch. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but it's really a biblical theology of blessing. So what does it mean to be blessed, to bless others? And she was a missionary overseas, maybe in Turkey. And so it's just really, really an interesting book. Now for fiction, I mentioned I read Beowulf or listened to Beowulf. I also read The Road.
There's a movie on that, right? Is there
on which one?
The Road.
The Road. There is. It has Aragorn.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
The movie isn't. It's hard to put that book into a movie,
right?
Although the movie's not bad. So The Road by Cormac McCarthy, which is Karen Swallow Pryor uses The Road in her chapter on hope, which it's post-apocalyptic. It's about as hopeless as a landscape gets. Even the writing is sparse, and yet it's really there is a thread of hope that runs through it. I read Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, and found that really interesting. Really interesting. I didn't know much about like Thor other than
when I was a little kid. I was
really
into mythologies, and so I had all these books and comic books, so they kind of overlapped a lot. And so I used to read about all these different gods, and Norse mythology was one of my favorites because they're fascinating. And most of you have watched the Avengers, so you know a little bit of.
That's right. I was like, oh, I remember Thor.
Yeah. He's a big muscled up guy.
Yeah, yeah. Book of Sorrows. So none of these are new books. Book of Sorrows is Walter Wangerin, and it's part 2 of a series he did beginning with the Book of the Dun Cow. These were young adult books that aren't really young adult books. Book of Sorrows is the saddest book I've ever read. And And so maybe don't read that if you're not in a good place.
I wonder if Kayla has read that. But she finds sad books to read.
Yeah. But there's almost no book, fiction or nonfiction, that shows what sin is and what it does, or what evil is and what it does, better than this book. Walter Wangerin is a Lutheran pastor and author up in the upper Midwest somewhere. So, okay, and then finally, Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. Man, that's just, it's just, again, a book on what it means to be human, and the forces at work in the world, that he does such a good job of showing what is behind the scenes, and the evil that's happening and the good that's happening, the battles that are happening all around us. And so those are kind of my highlights of the year. I'll post all 50 books. Some of them are like kids' books. I'm not counting Goodnight Moon.
Yeah.
But I think I did a Pilgrim's Progress for kids version with my kids.
Yeah.
There's a couple like that.
Green eggs and ham, probably.
Not counting that, Reed. So here are some of my highlights. Some of the highlights for me were just doing it, right? Like being able to see the progress, to keep going, was good for me. Some of these books have really shaped me this year. I've changed my mind on things. Atomic Habits recently has really kind of recharged me in a season where I needed to be recharged, thinking about habits and practices again. Deep Work has, if you've listened along, it's been obvious, has been shaping me some this year. It's overall was an extremely good experiment for me this year. I will say there was a disappointment. I have forgotten so much. I was looking back over my list today, and so what I did is I kept a note on my phone, and so every time I finished a book, I would just add it to the notes, because otherwise I'd actually forget which books I read.
Yeah, for sure.
And man, some of the books I didn't have their authors; I just write the title. And there were a few I went back and I was like, "What is this?
Why did I read that? Yeah.
What year was I reading? I don't remember this at all." And so I do think reading with such breadth, such a broad amount of books, lent itself to missing some.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think I internalized nearly as much as I would have liked to.
One of the things that has changed in my life over the years, Jesse, is that I used to be really hung up on reading every book I bought. I did that for a long time. Don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I used to be obsessive about capturing good quotes. And so much so that I had this Microsoft Access database where I was putting quotes in and categorizing them. I had a Princeton student that I was working with trying to put it into a web application online so I could use it on wherever for a while. And also I had this quote that this guy said one time. He's like, "Hey, you got to be careful because you only have this many years of your life left." And so that only means you only have I don't remember 450 books left that you could possibly even read. You better choose wisely. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to waste my time on a crap book, And I just dropped all that. I don't know if it's just because I've gotten older and lazy and less ambitious. I don't know what it is, but now I just kind of if I hit a good quote, I'll use it in something I'm talking about or teaching in that season.
Yeah,
and I don't feel so obsessive about capturing it all for forever. And I really have enjoyed reading for pleasure much more recently than just simply reading to learn things. I felt so behind in Christianity when I first became a believer in college. I just wanted to read everything. I was like, wow,
I got to catch up.
Yeah, I remember taking philosophy at Virginia Tech when I was in campus ministry and getting to read Augustine and Aquinas in source because they made me to. I was like, this is amazing. My education robbed me of these Christian authors. Why did they tell me about this? Now I'm just I really don't stress as much. I probably shouldn't buy some books that I don't read now, but I tend to still buy some books that I don't read and I'd like to read that, and I buy it and I don't read it.
There are worse spending habits though, right? I mean, you might spend an extra $15 on a book here or there, but
it's not like buying a driver for your golf bag or something.
That's right. Although that.
Are you a golfer? Do I know
occasionally?
This
about you? No. I mean, if you want to play, I'll play. But
yeah, we'll have a therapy session on golf one time on the podcast.
So
Are you going to have a number in mind for this year?
No,
or are you just
so I'm not doing it again.
You're going to be free.
I'm going to be free. I'm not doing it again. I would say I think that I was happier. So I watched less TV, was on social media less, on the internet less, and read more this year than I have in maybe, I don't know how long. And I think it was good. So overall, though, was I happier than in 2018? I don't know. Probably not. Does
Jenny want you to watch TV shows with her?
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll watch shows.
That's where
together.
I do my fiction, I guess. Is a serial TV.
And we're in the golden age, right? Of TV.
Yeah.
And good storytelling is being done now in ways that it wasn't in the past on TV. So I don't know how to. We should explore that at some point.
Yeah. There's a book that I read probably 4 or 5 years ago about that, where you have long form movies, right? 2 hours. Which is actually very limiting if you want to kind of develop characters and have any sort of story arc. So movies are going to be way worse than the book. But if you can do a 10-episode thing over time, right, then storytelling through kind of visual media like TV has gotten way better. And I think that's a very interesting development in our culture, where you can actually have deeper engagement with story through kind of visual media than you could in the past. Now, there always been an hour-a-week TV shows, but it's a little different if you can watch 3 of them in a row.
That's right. That's right. And even if it's an hour a week, it's done in a way that is just you're in the story, you're connected to it. You can't wait, for the next release. And so I think there's room for that. But I'm not doing it this year. I'm just going to read what I want to read and what I need to read, and I'm not going to count it.
Awesome.
Now, so let me ask you a question, Reed. You got anything you're picking up for 2020? You got any challenges or practices?
I don't. I want to
get swole in the garage with Tommy.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that I'm more and more operating on relational and life stage goals, I guess, is that, okay, I know that my oldest is going to college in late summer. So I have some goals and desires for my relationship with her before that transition happens. My son is going to be heading into a different season as a little athlete, and I'm thinking through how do I bond with him, relate to him, and put in some habits in the garage to get strong, that kind of thing. I think more than anything, my questions have more to do with vocation these days than kind of leisure and family, which seem to be, for me, going great. But in terms of work, sometimes I'm wondering exactly my focus for the coming year. And so I have some ministry, I guess, goals where I'm trying to get some clarity on some things that I do. I think for me, for whatever reason, audiobooks have been a real revelation for me. They've been so helpful because I really do. I fill my car time, my workout time, usually with books or podcasts. And I just enjoyed learning about things I didn't know. And then that helps me be a better conversationalist, maybe obnoxious sometimes when I'm talking to my kids about history or something. They tend to be kind of nerdy too and like that. The biggest thing that I really am reminded of as a Christian, and this is something that I think we can derive indirectly from the wisdom literature of the Old Testament, Ecclesiastes. This is Ecclesiastes 11 and 12. And this is not an anti-book verse, but it's a reminder. This says, "The words of the wise are like goads, and like nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. My son, beware of anything beyond these," right? "Of the making of books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh." And to me, that's a reminder that the words of the wise, the words of God even, need to have a primary shaping and framing of the world, maybe worldview shaping in my life, so that as I engage with other books, other works, you can spit out some stuff and not waste some of your years on a bad book, and even developing good habits to try to avoid wasting some of your life on something that is not helpful to read. And so I found a tool about a few years ago that I re-engaged this year pretty heavily called the Daily Liturgy Podcast, which is about a 15-minute-a-day audio production from my friends at Coram Deo Church in Omaha. And basically it follows kind of a reformed liturgy where you can wake up in the morning and listen to a reading from the Old Testament, a confession of sin, which kind of gets heavy because it's kind of a reformed tradition. It's like, I suck again today. I suck every day.
Of all the bad people.
Yeah.
I'm the worst.
I am the worst. Yeah, and then it has a prayer. So you say the Lord's Prayer together. And then a New Testament reading and an affirmation of the gospel. That's every day too, that God's grace to you is sufficient. You're loved and accepted and fully forgiven in Christ. And then a reading of the Psalms, which usually connects to some sort of emotional movement, a psalm or proverb, kind of wisdom literature. So I really enjoy that. And I don't feel like a heaviness where if I'm trying to I got to get through the Bible through the year thing, that's never been good for me, because I feel like if I miss a couple of days, I get mad, or I feel like I'm reducing my relationship with the God who created all things to sitting and reading a book. So that's been something really helpful, and I think participating in the Bible, the Word of God, in an oral way. And I think you mentioned Beowulf. I think there's a lot to be said about the hearing of the word, so to speak. So I'm looking forward to that this year.
That's cool. I'll have to check that out, because the one thing I'm picking up for this year, I'm dropping my read 50 books. I'm
Biddy one.
No, but what I am picking up is Bible on audio. So I've got I went with that NLT, the Story. I think it's called the Story Bible, and it's chronological. Oh, that's what it is. It's chronological, and I've got it on Audible, and
like historical
chronological.
Okay.
So, I'm still in Genesis, so far it's chronological. And so I'm with you where I'm not gonna keep it to I have to do it every day, a certain amount of time. But I'm just gonna work my way through it, and I'm hoping by listening to gain something, right? So to hear it in a fresh way, and like you said, I can be listening while I'm on a walk in my neighborhood or driving over here, or and you can't hold the book up and read while you're driving. And so I'm excited for this year. Just letting the Word of God kind of wash over me,
dwell in you richly.
Dwell in me richly.
There's a thing, friends, where the books that we read, the things that we watch, the stories that we tell and believe and reenact, even in our relationship, shapes our world. And I don't mean that in a kind of anti-reality thing. We all live in God's world, but letting His vision, His story, His grand narrative shape how we see all other things certainly will lead to a life of hope and worship. Jesse, thanks for sharing another experiment with us here today,
man. I was happy to.
Glad you read 50 books. You deserve those 13,000 pages to shape your mind and vision.
Stop. Just give me a star.
Gold stars on the Gospel Underground. 5 stars on iTunes. Thank you guys for the additional reviews that are flowing up there. We really do appreciate it. Send your feedback, comments, questions that you might have. I got a blog entry of my best reads from 2019. I'll throw up on the show notes here as well. But if you have questions, you want us to talk about something, we'd love to do that. Hit us up at info@gospelunderground.org. We are a dialogue taking place in the borderlands between the church and culture. We hope to see you out there. Peace.